I've been working in search for 20 plus years, all the way back when it was, white text on a white background and spamming Google and all kinds of fun things. Sounds like the intro to like a Marketers Anonymous kind of conference or something. But anyway, I've been working in search for a long time. I know what I'm doing. I've been paying attention. I currently work at a company called Raptive. We are a very big publisher. We work with about 6,000 sites across the open web, creators, media companies, and so on. And I'm not going to go into too much details here, but I lead the audience growth team. We see about 20 billion Google page views a year in our data. So we have a lot of data. We have a view of what's working, what's not working, what's happening on the open web, and what? No, seriously, there was a question. Does anybody know what's going on? I don't know what's going on. Everything is changing. Up is down, left is right. I thought I'd start my presentation with a little vibe check on Wall Street. Angie's Q2 2025 earnings. I think free search organic traffic, which people often refer to as Google SEO, it's probably a declining asset for most businesses you talk to. I think great. People Inc., formerly Dotdash, we have a term we use internally called Google Zero. What happens if Google goes to zero? What happens if Google no longer sends us traffic? I think great either. NerdWallet, more people getting answers without ever clicking through to websites. That doesn't sound great. Fiverr, the CEO of Fiverr recently said at a conference, it feels outdated. I mean, you put keywords, you can get blue links. That's weird, it feels like the 90s. Yeah, okay, fair play. AI search is the biggest disruption we've seen to how search fundamentally works than we've ever. It's just like brand new. So everything is different, everything has changed. However, let's ground in a couple things. I've got a couple data points. One, this is a chart of ChatGPT traffic across the Raptive network. Again, we have 6,000 sites. We're top 10 ComScore publisher, a lot of page views. That's a chart that goes up and to the right pretty steeply. But it's also less than 0.2% of our network traffic today. Tiny, 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 really tiny. And so, everything's changing. But like in terms of clicks, in terms of volume, in terms of scale, it's not quite there yet. Now, caveat to this, we heavily index on media sites, creators, publishers, bloggers. We have a lot of consumer demand, and I'll talk about the B2B side in a little bit, where things are a little bit different. And so, how can that be? Everyone's using ChatGPT, right? We're all using it. There's a whole conference about it. What's going on, right? Well, it turns out that most of the AI search usage is additive to Google, right? There's a couple things here. There's some data and research from SparkToro and Datos. This chart over here, the blue line is Google search volume over time, Google usage. The purple line is AI tools usage over time. And while everyone is starting to use these AI tools, it has not impacted Google usage one bit. In fact, they did a ClickPanel study. So there's a ClickPanel study of people that were not using ChatGPT, started using ChatGPT before and after, right? And it showed that you went from this panel, this sample of panel went from 0 usage of ChatGPT to 5 prompts a week. Those same people in that time period went from 10 Googles a week to 12 Googles a week. So they started using ChatGPT and they Googled more, right? This is, for anyone who can't do simple math, 17-ish. So you've gone from 10 searches a week to 17 searches a week. This is exploding what people are searching for. Search usage is just off the charts. You can search for things you could never search for before. And we know that pretty concretely. This is a chart from some research that ChatGPT just launched, I think it was this week or last week, showing how people use ChatGPT, all kinds of different prompt classifications. And, I'm not going to spend too much time on all the details here, but the TLDR is that a lot of this is not search. A lot of this has nothing to do with search. Only somewhere between 20, 30, 40% of these map to anything like we would have considered search before, right? It's kind of like practical guidance pillar, tutoring, teaching, specific info. Those are kind of like search. Relationships and personal reflection, that ain't search. Personal writing, communication, translation, that ain't search. Just like radically different, right? And so, you could say, okay, clicks aren't really happening from ChatGPT. Can we just ignore it? Like, no. We can't ignore it, and I think everyone knows that in the room, but search is radically changing. Number one AI product in the world is AI overviews, right? So I think we're all familiar with this. So AI overviews, this is the kind of summary that appears at the top of Google, answers the query for you, which is partly why clicks are going down. Hands up, anyone familiar with WebGuide from Google? Google WebGuide? Not a single hand in the room. Nobody. Okay, wow. This is in labs right now, so it's experimental, you gotta go turn it on. This is, in my opinion, where Google is headed with the future of search. So if you have any interest in the future of search, go figure out how to get access to WebGuide, go turn it on in labs, and go play around with it. This is basically a rewritten 10 blue links. So it has a bunch of links, right? So it's like an AI version of a search results page. And I strongly believe that Google's gonna keep investing in this. Very interesting. AI mode, also in my professional expert opinion, really bad. Sorry about that, if there's anyone from Google in the room. But AI mode is Google's version of like ChatGPT, chat, search, etc. Just not really very good right now in all kinds of ways. This is a recipe example where I'm asking for recipes and it just vomits a recipe at me. Remember, reminder, AI does not have fingers. Can't cook. So lots of problematic things there. And then ChatGPT, obviously perplexity. We know search is radically changing. So how is search changing? Well, those AI overviews I showed you are showing up more and more and more. Since March 2025, there was a big update Google made. AI overviews are now more prevalent, also almost twice as prevalent as they were before. They appear on somewhere between 30 and 40% of all search results have an AI overview at the top. And when they show up at the top, clicks go down 20 to 40%. So all of those statements from Wall Street that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, this is why. We just ain't getting as many clicks as we used to, right? We had an era of clicks, and that era is dying. AI mode, there was a study done with some clickstream data again on AI mode. AI mode sends 6 times fewer clicks. So it doesn't matter where you click, not just like position 1, but like total clicks out from the page on AI mode versus a search results page is 6 times fewer. That's a lot times fewer for, again, anyone that isn't good at math. A lot of things are changing. Again, I mentioned that we don't get a lot of traffic from ChatGPT on the consumer side in any way, shape, or form. But there is some growing usage on the B2B side, right? And this is not my data, this is data from a Webflow webinar recently. They're seeing almost 8% of total signups coming from AI bots, right? And so, I think this presages in my mind like, okay, we're not getting a lot of clicks now, but everything is changing, right? And what happens in the B2B side eventually trickles into the consumer side, right? The B2B is kind of the leading indicator. And net, right, the result is fewer clicks, right? Again, this is a different study that shows exactly the same data point, which is this kind of turquoise line over here. This is the rise of the number of searches on Google that result in 0 clicks out anywhere to a non-Google property, just off the charts. This chart is up and to the right. So that's kind of where we are, right? Which is basically like, nobody knows. Everything is changing, right? Clicks are going down, incontrovertible. Believe that's going to continue to happen. But 3 ideas that I want to kind of anchor on, back to Noah's point of like, okay, so what, right? What do we think about as we think about the next 12, 18, 24 months of this change? Number 1, search evals. How good is Google? Anybody know? Nobody actually knows how good Google is except Google because they are a monopoly, and it has been in no one's interests to actually benchmark Google against anything else, because the only other thing you could benchmark it against was Bing, and let's be clear, nobody's bothering to do that. In fact, in the recent antitrust trials, the monopoly trials that Google was in, I love this quote. This is a quote from the judge. In 2020, Google conducted a quality degradation study which showed that it would not lose search revenue if it was to significantly reduce the quality of its search product. Google intentionally made Google worse, and nobody cared, right? This is literally the definition of a monopoly, right? This is literally like what happened was Google had 0 competition for the longest time, and because of that, the entire ecosystem, there is no independent third party that tells you how good Google is, right? Is Google getting better over time at travel search? Nobody knows. Is Google getting better over time at credit card comparison? Nobody knows. Is Google getting better at product search over time? Nobody knows, right? There is no independent third party data, study, etc. There is nothing. We need more of this, right? Now that we have actual competition, now that ChatGPT is here, now that Perplexity here, Claude's here, we need real benchmarking and data and insights into how good search is on these different platforms and who does it better, right? This is a blog post from a company called Wallet Hub. Total transparency, right? I have no affiliation with them, but they do credit card comparisons, so they're like a little bit self-serving. But they did their own study showing that if you search for best zero APR credit cards, the dollar cost of making the wrong decision of all the results that show up in Google is expensive, right? Obviously self-serving, they gave themselves a $0 cost. They think they have the best option, right? But this is exactly the kind of methodology and the kind of thing that we need more of, right? We need more of these independent, this is not really independent, we need more non-Google independent studies of how good search is in different verticals. Fun fact, for fun, I put best zero APR credit cards in, and ChatGPT nails it with exactly the same best zero APR credit card as Wallet Hub recommends. I'm not a financial expert, no transparency, I don't know if that is actually the best result, but again, this is a single study from a single independent company. We need more of this. This is some data from a company called Exa.ai. Anyone familiar with Exa.ai in the room? One person. Okay, great. Lots of new stuff for folks here. So Exa.ai, go check it out. They are building a new search engine from the ground up using LLMs. Very different than lots of the other approaches that are out there like ChatGPT and so on. They have some really interesting, exciting things they're doing. And there's a link down here to a blog post, which again, I'm sure we'll send the slides out, et cetera, after, talking all about how they do search evals. So they are one of the only people talking about how to do search evals, how to actually understand whether a search result is good or not. Did it answer the user's query? And I love this, right? Like I'm all for this. I think Exa are doing amazing things. And when you read this stuff, it's like 101. It's like, how tall is the Eiffel Tower? And they have the right answer. And then they're asking that question to ChatGPT and they're like, oh, search seems pretty good. It's like, we are so far away from having any clue as to how good this stuff is at any kind of scale, any kind of benchmarks, any kind of measurement. We need better search evals. Okay, those are the first thing. Second thing, we're moving from an era of links, right? Like I mentioned, links are kind of going away everywhere, to an era of recommendations, right? And to Noah's point about, is it GEO, generative engine optimization? Is it AIO? Is it AIEO? Whatever the crappy acronym you want to give it. There are a ton of hustle bros on LinkedIn that will try and sell you the new GEO source. A lot of, like every single vendor under the sun right now in the search space is like, I got the GEO, goodness, I got the secrets, I got the new stuff, you gotta be changing your strategy, you gotta be doing all those kind of cool things. Like, this is a study that somebody did across 50, they compiled 50 of those different like GEO best practices, extracted all the advice for like what they're recommending, figured out what GEO is being recommended as structured content. Comprehensive content. Listen, if you were not writing comprehensive content before, and you think that because of ChatGPT, oh, now we should do the like, come on, guys. Like, this is beyond ridiculous. Brand mentions in digital PR. Again, if you were not doing brand mentions in digital PR before, and now suddenly because of ChatGPT, somehow you think this is like new strategy or new information, like, I got a igloo I can sell you or something. Anyway, to say it maybe less politely, I love Lily Ray. She's a friend of mine in the industry. So tired of reading this crap, right? Again, this is like an example, like SEO playbook is dead, here's what works. And it's like, it's all the same things that used to work. Spoiler alert, good quality content is still the thing that works. Now, the wrinkle here, and I kind of want to bring this up, harken back to my gray hair and the fact that I've been doing this a long time. I remember when SEO was white text on a white background. Right? And like spamming links with a link vendor in India somewhere, right? Like it was really spammy and like that stuff worked and it was like, that's what we all did, right? That was SEO 1.0, right? I'm compressing the timeline here, bear with me. SEO 2.0, you could kind of consider as like, oh, like real links have value. So people did like content marketing and started to understand like, oh, we should do real outreach to get links from the good spaces. We should try and do a bit of digital PR. That was like the middle era. And then what we've moved into in the past like, 5 years or so, it was kind of SEO 3.0, right, where Google's measuring user intent. They're actually using clickstream data from Android and Chrome and understanding how people actually engage and click, real brand signals, click signals, a compressed timeline, but this was kind of how SEO has evolved over time. The GEO timeline, right, is like, we are here. We are in GEO 1.0. And what everyone is recommending is like, the thing that works for GEO is you should write like a LinkedIn article saying 10 best AI vendors for CRM, and then put yourself number one. And that's what like influences ChatGPT. And like, listen, it works. there's a little bit of this that actually works today, right? There's a little bit of like, you know what? You write a LinkedIn article, you say 10 best for X for Y, and you put yourself number one. Like, there's a little bit of that does actually show up in these surface areas. But like, come on, like, not for long, right? Like, if this is what you're chasing, and if this is what you're trying to sell into any kind of executive team, right? If you're trying to like convince your CMO or your CEO or your CFO that we should suddenly be spending against this thing, like, hang on a second, hang on, right? This is not going to last for long, right? And it is exceptionally dumb, I think, right? So again, a little bit of it works, right? Everyone's going to try and figure out how to do it the right way. But here's what I think is really going on and where you really need to pay attention, right? The age of 10 blue links is done. We are going to get to an era very quickly, I think, where we are never, ever going to see a kind of naive blue link. And I use blue link as like the kind of like standard like current Google search results, like a kind of, hey, here's a link that answers your question, but like might be relevant to the thing you were asking about. We are never going to see one of those ever again. And what instead we're going to see, and this is a screenshot from that Google Web Guide I was talking about, and the difference here is like, this is the kitchen, which is a recipe media site, in regular Google, right? And this description of the link comes directly from the page. This is the meta description, right? This is like basic stuff, simple stuff. We've been in this era forever, right? This is how Google has worked for a very, very long time. This is Web Guide, and it looks pretty similar, but this is now a descriptive piece of text written by AI about why this link is relevant to the thing you search for. This is like it's a small conceptual change, but changes everything. We're never ever going to see again Google or ChatGPT or anyone kind of putting a link there and being like, maybe it was this. Instead, it's going to be like, no, it's this, and there's 5 reasons why, right? This kind of contextual recommendation changes everything, right? And this is going to be the future. And so the future is, okay, so how do you get it to recommend this thing? How do you get it to say the thing that says this is relevant to what you're searching for? And I actually think we're going to see a lot more links come back, right? So links have kind of gone away, but these recommendations, I think, are going to be part of the future. And this is opinionated, right? Like N of 1. But any prompt you give, Gemini, ChatGPT, and so on, like, it's almost always better if you just ask it for links. So like the thing that you were gonna ask for, right? So this is an example from recipes, like I'm making spiralized zucchini salad, how do I make it tasty? Give you some ideas, right? Or I'm making spiralized zucchini salad, how do I make it tasty? Also give me some links. And it does a great job. Like it gives you the stuff, but then it also says, hey, here's a simple zucchini salad that you might want to check out. It's a recipe. Here's a creamy Greek salad. Here's like an all recipes Greek salad. And then obviously off the bottom of the screen is like creamy and cheesy. It gives you different options, but it gives you links, right? Why doesn't this happen more, right? Why aren't we seeing more links in results? Because I think links are good. I'm biased. Like I'm a fan of the open web. I work at a company called Raptive. We care about the open web. I've been blogging for a long time. I'm a weird nerd. I like links. But I think this is better. And honestly, a lot of the reason we don't see more links in places like AI overviews in particular is speed. Google can't do this, fetching the links, understanding them, adding the contextual links back in time, right? And again, that web guide experience that I mentioned to you earlier, Google Web Guide is really slow. It takes like 3 or 4 seconds to generate the web guide response. That's a technical limitation, which is going to get solved as we go forward. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to keep speeding along. Again, to kind of illustrate this point, and not to pick on 1-800-Flowers, I have no affiliation with them, but I was trying to think of an example of like a company that ranks really well in Google search today that is going to have a hard time in the era of AI search. And it's things like this, where it's like, you know, I say, should I buy flowers from 1-800-Flowers? ChatGPT is like, if I were you, for a one-time gift, convenience, sure. But if it's a special occasion, like, you probably want to go to like a local florist or something like that, and I can help you out with that, right? This is the future of AI search. It's not about spamming some LinkedIn article with like 10 best X for Y. It's about actually understanding why your brand is differentiated in the market, what is the value prop to the consumer, and then making sure that that is out there everywhere. Like this kind of like brand marketing, right? Product marketing, understanding value prop, understanding the landscape, that is the future of search, right? And if you're stuck there trying to like optimize like a bunch of directory links like we were in like 1999, right? Like I got news for you, like that isn't, you have no viable career in front of you, right? Like the entirety of like AI search is going to get taken over by people who understand brand marketing, persuasion, value prop, and more. I'm going to slip this slide because it's kind of complicated and I'm running out of time. And so like my last point here about moving from links to recommendations is literally the trillion-dollar question, right? Because Google is a big company and search advertising is a big thing, is like, for the longest time, Google has been able to link to suboptimal products. They've been like, hey, here's a bunch of links. Maybe you might like some of them. Maybe some of them are good. Maybe some of them are bad. I don't know. Like, click them and find out, right? You can link to suboptimal products, but can you recommend them, right? And so again, this is an example from, I've tried to blur out the actual example, but it's like a vehicle history report website. Search vehicle history reports on Google. This website is #1. You ask AI mode, should I use it? And it says, whoa, no. Do not use this. This is not the right thing. There's like official government places you can go and so on. So this is really like a radical rethinking of like, search is gonna really, really change. And advertising is gonna be this weird thing because, again, you can't recommend a bad product, but recommendations is gonna be the future of this space. So, all right, I've got one last thing because I'm over time. I guess I shouldn't have left this for last. Is the web gonna survive? Anybody know? Guesses? Yes, all right, great. I love the enthusiasm. I'm hopeful. Is the web gonna survive? This is my last slide, so bear with me. There's actually a lot going on in this chart. This is some data from Chartbeat. Let's first pay attention to this dark blue line down here. This is over 2,000 news and media websites with the Google search traffic. You can see that as Google AI overviews roll out, search traffic is declining, right? We saw that in the Wall Street quotes from earlier. Search is a declining asset across media and news sites, continuing to go down. Will the web survive? Maybe, maybe not. Clicks are gonna go down for a little bit further, I think. Eventually, I think they'll stabilize, but they're gonna go down. But Google Discover. Anybody know what Google Discover is? Couple people, okay? Google Discover is the recommended articles feed of Google. It shows up like on your lock screen on Android, inside the Google app on iOS. Google Discover is growing in traffic, and I actually think the future of AI search is entirely backwards. The whole thing, we're talking about us prompting the AI and getting a response. The future is gonna be it coming to you. Think about how much ChatGPT knows about you and how good its recommendations would be. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., it's like, hey, speaking at a conference day, here's 5 things you might want to know. Here's relevant to everything that we've talked about. I have my entire life history. I'm using this thing for therapy, for crying out loud, right? Like, it knows everything about me and it's gonna get so good at recommended content. So I'm actually bullish. I think the open web's gonna survive. Search is gonna continue to decline. Discover's gonna explode. What happens next? Anybody's guess. Thank you.